Matt Brown, Caleb Carr here with you. This is BKL Nightly for Monday, November 24th. Bills getting ready to take on the Steelers, still probably licking their wounds a little bit after a hammering at the hands of the Houston Texans. We'll talk about both topics today. To be honest, it'll be a little more about the Houston game than the upcoming Steelers game. Aaron Rodgers, Caleb Carr, at least expected to play. That's the latest report from Pittsburgh for this week.
Yeah, obviously he was out last week.
Wrist injury.
But as far as I think after the game, Tomlin spoke, after the Pittsburgh game on Sunday, Tomlin spoke, and it seems like they are expecting him to kind of play. Reports said that Aaron really wanted to play this week, but that the doctors were like, it's really not a good idea. And he was like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. And the doctors were like, no, you're not. So that's why he sat out on Sunday. But it seems like they might let him play against the Bills this weekend.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has a history with the Bears that he wanted to continue.
Yes,
the same cannot be said with the Bills. If those games were reversed, I think he might have been a little less excited about getting on the field last week. So it should be Aaron Rodgers for the Steelers this week against the Bills. Let's go back to the Houston Texans loss now a little bit and more, not go right back into the game, but talk a little bit about the reaction from the coaches coming out of it, because the coaches did address the media over the weekend. And of course, the big topic was Joe Brady, the offense, the failures on offense. And I spent the weekend answering social media posts on X from, I'd say, 500,000 people who wanted Joe Brady fired. Sean McDermott did address that. And I'll tell you what, it is Monday, first of all, and the Bills have not announced any changes. So Joe Brady is going to be the guy for the rest of the year, for better or for worse. Let's hear from Sean McDermott about exactly why he thinks that's the right way to go.
Very confident in Joe and our offensive staff. We've got a good offensive staff. They'll continue to put together a plan each week that allows us to win and play our best. I just believe in those guys. I really do. And they've had success in years past, and I just really believe in what they do and how they do things, and I feel like we're in a good spot. He didn't all of a sudden become a bad coach. Do adjustments need to be made? Clearly they do, and I count on those guys to make those appropriate adjustments as we move forward as a football team.
So Joe Brady against the Texans, I got to say, after going back and watching the offensive film, I liked a lot of what he did. Number one, this Texans defense on average gave up 16 points per game, 258 yards per game. Joe Brady in his first 3 drives had 158 yards and 9 points, should have been 10. So in 3 drives, he's more than halfway to what an average Texan game was. The point being, when you're an offensive coordinator, you script a number of plays, and you can kind of dive into the film, think about what might work, what won't work. After that, it's kind of player on player and how you adjust. But the part that he scripted, and didn't even have a full week to script, the part that he was able to dive in and prepare for, he was cooking. He was really making things happen. And there are a number of things in there that are Joe Brady things, particularly the 4th and 2 throw to Ty Johnson. Now, look, there's a lot after that I'm with everybody else in the world wasn't good enough. We talked about the 4th and 1 run ad nauseum in the postgame show. But when you combine the stuff at the beginning of the game, plus the hook and ladder call late, a couple other things later in the game that I thought were okay, positives, this game was not a terrible Joe Brady game as much as, people want to run him out on a rail after the game.
Yeah, I agree with you that it definitely wasn't terrible. I think and I don't agree with the, just immediately calling for someone's head. And that's like an NFL fan thing. That's a sports fan thing. Something's going wrong, we're just going to call for the coach's head. Offense wasn't clicking, offensive coordinator. Like, that's what happens. And some teams give into it and they fire their coordinators. Some teams give them more chances, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't know if I really agree with the just like, fire Joe Brady immediately. But I think where people are coming from is you are correct in that it was a decent Joe Brady game. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't complete, though. It wasn't a complete Joe Brady game. And it doesn't matter how good your hook and lateral call is on 4th and 27. The fact that you're in 4th and 27, needing a conversion to stay alive in the game is the problem.
Excellent point.
That's the problem. It's what got you there. And yeah, awesome. You can script together 3 drives and go ahead, and you're an NFL level offensive coordinator. You should be able to do that. Now, obviously, I know some defenses are better than others, but the Houston Texans are one of the best defenses in the league, and they were still able to do that. So good for you, but I think it's what comes after that needs to improve, and that's like the consistency throughout the game. Like we need to see more good plays throughout the game, not just at this moment, and this moment, if that makes sense.
I think you're right. I think those are all very good points. The thing that I will kind of turn around on, and not that I'm trying to defend Joe Brady, I'll get to that in a minute, but you want to talk about consistency. The Bills in this game were consistently worse than the Texans. The offensive line part was a surprise. But in terms of the receivers, it's something that the Bills have had an issue with all year long. And I've always thought that there are maybe 3 or 4 at any one time offensive minds out there that can really impact the game just by simply coaching it up. And right now, I would say those guys are all head coaches, and they're in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Sean McVay, Kansas City, and maybe Chicago with Ben Johnson. And that's it. The offense, I don't think there's an offensive coordinator in football right now that I'm blown away by. There are other guys that you could make an argument. Shane Steichen in Indianapolis, he's a head coach, who are good offensive minds. But the point is, most offensive coordinators are hamstrung by the players they have. Ben Baldwin, he's on X at Computer Cowboy, posted a stat about whatever offensive coordinator was recently fired. I don't know. I think the Giants fired their defensive coordinator. Doesn't matter who the firing was. The point was, his post was offensive coordinator firing stats is actually a quarterback stat. The point being, OCs are hamstrung by their quarterback. Now, obviously, Joe Brady's got a great one, but it's not just a quarterback stat. If I'm playing chess and you're a grandmaster, if we play, you're going to whoop me. But if you play and all your pieces can only move like pawns, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win.
Probably.
And this is the Joe Brady problem right now. He's got too many pawns on this roster. Maybe not all the time, but players who too often play like pawns. And I don't know what more you're asking him to do. All that said, is he doing a good job? No. Is he doing a good enough job? No. So I can understand why fans would want to move on, but I just don't know how many offensive minds are out there, if at all, that would make this Bills offense much better.
Yeah, I really like that chess pawns analogy, because that is exactly what, especially the receiving room right now, there's no king, there's no queen. I'm not a big chess guy, so I don't
Queen
know.
is the better point.
Is Queen the better one? Okay.
King's
Queen's
actually
the best one? Or?
Kings actually have the worst
about
ability to move. They can only move one space at a time. Pawns actually can only go forward.
I did know that.
Queens can actually move in any direction.
Any direction. And then the other ones are
Rook, Bishop, and Knight. I don't want to get into the...
Those are all like set what they can move, though. Queens can do whatever they want.
But they can move... Knights can move 2 space and then 1 space a different direction. Rooks and bishops can move in a particular direction, but as far as they want to on the board. So they're all better than pawns and kings.
They don't even... Yeah, there's not even any rooks or bishops in this receiving room right now.
Khalil Shakir is like a knight who can kind of go up 2 spots in one.
And Dalton Kincaid, I would consider when he's obviously in there. He hasn't been in there recently due to injury, but other than that, everyone else is just a pawn. There's no X factor. There's no queen. There's no multiple rooks. There's whatever. And I agree with you that when that's what you're working with, are there areas that Joe Brady can improve? Are there play calls where you're like the 4th and 1, for example? Yeah, yes, you can blame what he's working with, but it's also like you need to know what you're working with. You need to know that you're working with pawns. Like if we're playing and I have only pawns, I know that my pawns can only do this. I'm not trying to do other stuff with my pawns. I have to develop a strategy with them, knowing that they can only do this. I feel like sometimes some play calls, it's like you got to know that that's not going to work. You have to know that Elijah Moore is not going to be able to take a jet sweep and break outside. Like you have to know what your pieces are capable of. And sometimes I think he tries to push too much on that.
I think it's a great furthering of the analogy. It's a very interesting thought overall. And I don't think you're wrong about it at all. Let's move on to the pass protection in particular, because Joe Brady talked about what went wrong with the 8 sacks Josh Allen took. We'll get into that, but let's hear from Joe Brady in terms of explaining what the problem was with that against the Texans.
There were a multitude of things of changing protections, doing jams, trying to get some ball out throws, but didn't do a good enough job. He was taking too many hits, and some of those hits are naturally he'll be the first to admit some of those hits are on him, but some of them, they have a dynamic pass rush, and we allowed it to be allowed them to pass rush. we had 5 third and 4 to 6s that we didn't get, so those are in situations where there shouldn't be hits on the quarterback and there's hits on the quarterback. And so I think whenever there's a hit, there's a combination of, it's my fault, it's the scheme, it's are we getting open? Are we in the correct play? Are we in the communication of going to the right spots? And, are we just doing our 1/11th in the job and blocking? And, there's too often in game yesterday that there was a combination of a lot of those things happening on any given play.
Now, this game was abnormal for the Bills' offensive line, which has been very good and is generally rated as very good by most metrics. Pro Football Focus, I check this every week. They put the Bills' offensive line second or third most every week of the year. That said, it's not like this is the only game recently where Josh Allen has taken multiple sacks and or been under more pressure and had more negative plays. Remember last year, Josh Allen was barely sacked at all. This year is not totally out of the realm. How much of a concern for you is this Bills offensive line and or pass protection right this second?
I mean, I'm not too concerned. It's one. I agree that they haven't been playing up to the level that they did last year, but honestly, in my opinion, that's what's so far good. That was so far ahead that it's not a huge surprise that they come back down to earth a little bit, if that makes sense. Now, I think they've gone a little bit further at times, especially against the Texans. They've gone below ground.
They have fallen hard to earth right now.
They fell pretty hard against the Texans. But as a season as a whole, I'm not too concerned about the fact that they're doing a little bit worse than last year. So I still think that this is kind of like a one-off game. It was against a very, very good defensive line. It's a game where you don't have Keon Coleman out there. You don't have Dalton Kincaid. And, I know we've talked kind of negatively about Keon Coleman, especially in the past couple weeks. But one thing that I have said that he always does well is know what Josh Allen is going to do. And when Josh Allen runs out of the pocket, Keon Coleman is very good at finding space and getting open for Coleman. Although he might not be able to get open off the line of scrimmage and create separation in the first few seconds, he does. There are some big plays where he's able to get like scramble drill, right? But one thing I will say about the O-line that does concern me a little bit is that last week we saw a pretty heated argument on the sideline. And we were told that that's nothing. But then to have a follow-up performance of 8 sacks, now granted, some of those sacks are Allen's fault. Some of those sacks are the receiver's fault. Most of them, though, still fall, at least relatively, on the O-line. So I'm not saying that there is a problem in the O-line room, but to have that happen last week against the Bucs on the sideline and then to follow it up with that performance definitely isn't, telling anybody, oh, yeah, that's absolutely nothing, if that makes sense.
Deion Dawkins and David Edwards were the people who were arguing last week. David Edwards, I thought, had a good-ish game. Relative to the rest of the guys, David Edwards might have had one of the better games. So I don't know. I don't think it's wrong to bring that up. I don't know how much of a line we can draw.
I don't want to read into it too much, obviously, because I still believe that it's a one-off game. I'm just saying that it doesn't make that look any better by following it up with this poor of a performance.
Just to draw a line between how much different the stats are this year. Last year, the Bills, Josh Allen took 14 sacks in not 17 games. Didn't play that last one against New England for the most part. So 14 sacks in 16 games. He had, let you guess, how many games last year with 3 sacks or more?
3 or more, 1 maybe?
1 is the answer.
Okay.
This year, 3 sacks or more.
Most of them.
5. Not most of them, but 5.
Okay, that's not most. Yeah.
So that's 5 of 6.
Yeah.
But he took 14 sacks in 16 games last year. He's taken 14 sacks in his last 4 games this year. He's taken 20 sacks in the last 6 games. And of the last 6, 4 have been 4 sacks or more. Atlanta, Kansas City, Miami, and obviously the Houston game. So earlier in the year, it wasn't that big a deal, but this has developed now into a more regular problem.
It's definitely growing. Yeah.
And I will say that of the offensive line culprits, Deion Dawkins for me is at the top of the list, not because he's bad, but he has been the guy who's been most noticeably, I think, the worst than last year. Spencer Brown in this game was way worse than last year. This was a game that I would never have seen coming from Spencer Brown. So there's a lot of this that I want to just throw out. That A, great defensive line, B, absolutely unlike what has happened to this group before. But you look at those numbers, and even me just looking it back up, I'm like, I can't totally dismiss this. This is not just one game. The Bills have not gone 2 games in a row since week 4 without having at least one with 3 sacks or more. This is a continuous problem for this offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. That although we've definitely reached, like, this is the peak, the Texans games were the peak. There's definitely a little bit of a trend upward. I don't think the Texans game is the new, like, regular.
Oh, for sure. It better not be.
It better, if they want any chance of going to the playoffs. It definitely can't be. But I do agree that at least over the past few weeks, we've been trending downwards technically.
All right, a little bit of news today. Shaq Lawson was reportedly working out for the Bills on Monday. And I think what this tells us is exactly where the Bills are defensively at the DN position. TJ Sanders has been playing their last 2 weeks. And look, he's a rookie who was having a tough time at the position he's supposed to play, D tackle. At defensive end, he has not been any more effective. And the Bills don't really have anyone else. They did play Daquan Jones there a little bit early in this D-end issue right after Michael Hoyt got hurt. And I think they want Jones to be in the middle because they have injury issues there too with Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter. So Shaq Lawson did not play football except for one game last year. He hasn't made a tackle in nearly 2 years. Caleb, this is an indication, I think, of how desperate this team is at that position.
Yeah, I mean, injuries have just absolutely plagued the defensive side of the ball all season, even starting at the beginning of the year with Maxwell Harrison out for the first few weeks due to his training camp injury. I mean, it's just been the secondary, the linebackers, the D-line, everybody's feeling it. We talk about just how poor the defense has looked at times. I do think it's important to note that, like you said, TJ Sanders is getting reps at defensive end, and I don't know how good you can expect a defense to be when that is your resort. So, I mean, I don't think Shaq Lawson is a game changer by any means, but he is a veteran player who is familiar with playing that position, and I'd take that over a rookie who isn't really familiar with playing that position any day of the week.
And I know people are going to kind of laugh at here comes another guy that used to play in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But at this point in the season, you want to get someone who knows what they're expected to do with you. It doesn't mean he's going to sign, but of the available options, which are not great, I do understand the logic there. Mm-hmm. All right, time for the BKL Nightly Roundtable. Question number 1 for tonight. Look, we've talked a lot about how the offenses look bad, but Caleb, when you check the numbers, yards per play in the NFL, they rank 3rd. Rushes per attempt, rushing yards per attempt, they rank 3rd. Passing yards per attempt, you want to guess what they rank?
3rd?
3rd. Scoring percentage, not 3rd, 5th. Oh, darn it. But regardless, this is still a top 5 offense in a lot of major metrics. I know that there's a lot of eye test stuff that says otherwise, but how bad is this offense really?
Well, you talk about metrics. There's one metric that I think is the most important, and that's wins. And the Bills are not top 5
for sure
in that right now. So I think honestly that's the only thing that really matters. But I don't think they're that bad. We just talked a little bit about the O-line. It's one bad game. I know they haven't looked great over the past, but I don't think that's like a huge area of concern right now. James Cook is still very good. You still have Josh Allen there, very good. He's very good. I think the one thing about this offense, and I don't know if this is right at all, but this is just my thought/opinion. I honestly think they're just one receiver away, like one receiver stepping up and actually not even playing like an X receiver, like not being like this game changer, lead changer, just one guy stepping up and proving to be capable of making 5 to 6 catches for 80 yards a game. Just one guy. And that'll take pressure off the rest of the receiving room. And I honestly think that would just, I'm not going to say skyrocket this offense, but that would really help elevate them. They're just one guy away, whether it be Keon Coleman finally breaking out, whether it be Joshua Palmer, recovering off of how he's been injured pretty much all season and maybe finally breaking out a little bit. Maybe it's Khalil Shakir going out and using him downfield a little bit more, whatever it may be. But they definitely look bad. But I do think with all the pieces they have, the one thing they're really lacking is just a receiver stepping up.
I totally agree with that. I just think that receiver is named Justin Jefferson, that the guys they have on the team may not be capable of the leap that's required. I think they need a large leap. Like, I think you're right, but I don't know if they're even in the same zip code of what they need in general right now.
I think with the guys currently on the roster, though, like if you're just looking at this offense, you're not looking at this offense with Justin Jefferson or with Jamar Chase. Just this offense, not an offense before the trade deadline that was hypothetical. Just this. I think even just Keon Coleman proving that, like, hey, like we had a very heated conversation after the game about Keon Coleman just being productive. If he can take a step forward to be more than productive, and instead of catching 3 balls a game, catch 5 for 80 yards and a touchdown here or there, that I think could have an impact on the rest of the receiving room, maybe playing a little bit better, and then could at least help them right now currently. I think that's the best outcome, though. I don't think anybody in the receiver room is making that type of leap that can make the offense a Super Bowl contending offense. But if someone can at least step up, they could definitely improve.
I think the numbers support what you're saying, because the like I said, the underlying stuff here is still generally pretty good. Bills are still 5th in points per game for whatever that's worth. I think a softer schedule has played a part in this. They don't get challenged by the Houston level defense or anything close too often this year. But I still do think this is a pretty good offense. And I still think they'll be able to run the ball against most teams. I think they'll pass protect just fine against most teams. And I do think you're right that if the Bills can get something better out of the receiving core, there may be a trickle-down effect where everybody else loosens up just a little bit. But it feels like they are so far away, even if you include Dalton Kincaid in the lineup, that they are not really that close to creating that much of a release valve or an easy button for the offense to where it would work. Because even when Kincaid was in the game, all the things that Josh Allen was doing wrong, he's been doing wrong all year. Next question. We've kind of identified the problem. So if you are the Bills, what would you do different for the final 6 weeks here of the regular season and hopefully the postseason after that?
I thought about this for a little bit, and I honestly don't like my answer that much, because I don't think it's a good plan, but it might be one of the only options left. And it's to do with the receivers. It's literally just to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Throw Tyrell Shavers out there and give him 10 targets and see what he does. Give Khalil Shakir more targets downfield, because he can be a threat in like the 10 to 15 yard range.
Sure.
He's mainly been used behind the line of scrimmage or in short passing. Like, we've seen him make some bigger plays, but most of his big plays come from a wide receiver screen or a swing route or something, and then he does something downfield. Let's see if he can do something in midfield, like 10, 15 yards away, down the field, and see if he can make something there. Like, let's do something. Or maybe Coleman, or give Coleman 10 targets. Throw Davis out there more and see if maybe he's the guy he used to be. Throw Palmer out there and see if again, I don't like it, but the best thing I can think of is just throw the receivers at the wall and see which one grabs on.
To be honest, I don't think that is too dissimilar than what the actual professional team we're talking about is trying to do right now. So maybe you have a future in NFL coaching and or roster building.
Listen, that's a paycheck I would like. So
for sure,
I won't deny it.
I'm kind of in the same boat there. I have a couple specific ideas. Number one, I think a few more deep shots, even if they're not going to work, just to prove to a defense that you need to respect it. Exactly. Yes. And maybe you catch a pass interference here and there. Maybe Keon Coleman gets his act together, because of all the guys in the team, he might be the one most likely to make those work. Mm-hmm. Number two, and something I saw in the Houston game that I want to address a little bit, it feels like the Bills have too many routes that take too long to develop. People talk about the mesh routes that Joe Brady runs. And for people who don't know, it's basically when you take receivers on the outside and try and get them to cross to get man defenders to essentially run into each other and fall off the coverage. The problem with that is you have to wait for the guys to make the run, get into the middle, and then see who's available. It takes a little bit to develop. There was also a play in this game where Khalil Shakir was trying to run like a slant behind a pick. He and a tight end would line up next to each other. Tight end runs forward. He runs a route behind the tight end. But he dances a little bit and waits to make a move, which in a vacuum is nice. But the two problems with it: number one, obviously the pass rush gets there way sooner than anybody wants it to. But number two, because things have not worked down the field this year, I feel like Josh Allen's like, man, I ain't waiting for that because I know it's not going to work, and he moves on. So what I would do is quicker routes more often. At least if the receiver is going to lose the route, Josh Allen knows early and he can go to somebody else. Don't mess around with things that take a while to develop, not because you don't have the offensive line for it. You do, but just give your quarterback more answers earlier in the down. So he's not standing there waiting. There were a couple sacks in that game, a couple problems where he would look at the first read, wait for it to do its thing, and by the time he got done with that, the play was over. So longer developing routes would be the two things I would go to.
The only thing I would say about that is I don't know if there's a receiver on this team that can win that quickly.
Oh, for sure.
So I like it, but I don't know if anyone can win fast enough.
I agree, but at least make them lose faster.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we can figure out what's going on.
Can just go, yeah.
All right, after every single Bills game, we do confidence up, concern up about who we like and who we like more and who we like less coming out of the game. Confidence up we'll do first. Caleb, you can go.
This one's kind of developed over the past 2 games. Ty Johnson in the passing game as a receiving threat. I think he's kind of, at the beginning of the season, it was just Ty Johnson and Ray Davis just weren't there. They just weren't anywhere on the field. They weren't being utilized at all. Then I think, they tried to get them utilized a little bit more in the run game. We saw Ty Johnson take some more rushing snaps. Not really anything developing there. But as of the past few weeks, they've hit him out of the backfield a few times, and he's proven that he can, he's a good playmaker, that he can be elusive. He can, show some power. He can run some guys over. He can get some much needed yards. Obviously, great touchdown on the screenplay against Tampa Bay. That's like the high point of it. But I think overall, when the rest of your receiving core isn't doing good, if there's a guy that you can dump it down to and get 8 to 10 yards, then that's really good. And that's what Ty Johnson has been these past few weeks. Ty
Johnson's a very strong runner. He's not as smart or as elusive a runner. There was one play against Houston where I thought he tried to make a cut on a play that James Cook normally uses and made the cut too far, too close to the line of scrimmage and got tackled to where James Cook might have avoided it. So there's not as good a running back, obviously, but I'm totally with you. The passing game, he has not been involved enough all year long, and the last couple of games have been a lot better. For me, it's Elijah Moore. Last 2 or 3 games, going back to Miami, I see 18 pop up as a guy who's getting open noticeably. And on this team, that's saying something. I would like to see Elijah Moore get used more often. Could go into the last category, talked about things we'd want to do differently. But he is getting open enough that I'm bringing it up on a show. And I want to see more of Elijah Moore. I'm not against Elijah Moore even starting outside reps with Josh Palmer and Khalil Shakir. Going back to your idea of throw something on a wall, this is something that I would throw on a wall to see if it might stick. Concern up. Who is a little more concerning coming out of this game?
I feel like this guy's been kind of bouncing around from concern up, confidence up. He's just been all over the place. Joey Bosa, again, this is one that's kind of accumulated over the past 2 weeks. We've seen nothing from him in the past 2 games. I mean, even like earlier in the year, we kind of talked a lot about, although he's not getting the stats, he's still applying some pressure. And now he played, obviously Tua gets the ball out pretty fast. Even
Patrick Mahomes does too. Chiefs and Dolphins
Texans,
are two fastest in the
Davis
league.
Mills. Davis Mills got the ball out pretty fast on a couple plays. So, that obviously takes like a factor. But I just haven't really seen him show up at all, even doing stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. I just haven't felt his presence very much. And so for that reason, especially with how weak this defensive line is right now, like he needs to be a guy on the line, and he hasn't been.
To be fair, he is usually more often playing the right side of the defensive line. Since the wrist injury, the last 3 games, he has only played the left side. Now, when he was healthy, he'd play both sides, but more right. Again, clearly not being able to go into a 3-point stance on the wrist or be able to use the wrist from the right side of the defensive line has been a factor. Greg Rousseau also is on his weaker side, playing the left side all the time. Not an excuse. They should be able to get pressure. Exactly, but a factor. For me, it's Spencer Brown. This was kind of like the layup. If you want to talk about my opinion of Spencer Brown before this game and after this game, there was no way it was not going to be more concerning. I thought this was a guy that would 100% not only hold his own, but potentially look good. And he just did not. Even before Josh Allen started taking sacks, the first 2 snaps of the game, Spencer Brown got whooped on both of them. And those weren't even sacks in the game. So again, when I talked about the offensive line, I pretty much throw this game out for Spencer Brown. It is not like him to look like this, but concern up? Yeah, because I thought he was a top 2 or 3 tackle, and you got to kind of revise that projection, that assessment after this game. All right, that's going to do it for us here on BKL Nightly. We are back again tomorrow. It'll be me and Carl Jones with the Let's Talk Ball episode. No show on Thursday this week. Thanksgiving. Everybody can eat their turkey, me and Caleb too. But we will have plenty of stuff to talk about Tuesday and Wednesday as the Bills get ready to take on the Steelers in week number 13. For Caleb Carr, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks very much for watching tonight. We will catch you again tomorrow right here on BKL Nightly.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.